Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have Sisters Royale, a new shoot 'em up from Alfa System, available on the Switch. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. First, I do have to mention, this title is only available on the Japanese Nintendo Eshop, so if you're looking for this title, that's where you'll find it. Hopefully it does receive a wider release though. Sisters Royale is the first shoot 'em up to come along from Alfa System in over a decade. Alfa System is largely known for the Castle of Shikigami series, so if you like Castle of Shikigami, this is definitely a title I can recommend to you. It also has an awesome subtitle, so the subtitle below Sisters Royale basically translates to "I'm being harassed by 5 sisters and it sucks." Diving right into the game itself, we get a little bit of an introduction to the sisters. We'll just be largely skipping over the dialogue and the story, though. So there are 5 sisters we can choose between. For the purpose of today's video, I'll be focusing on the eldest sister, Sonai, but that being the case, I think it's worth taking a bit of a look at the other characters as they all control differently. First up, we have the second oldest, Sedima. As you see here, Sister Royale is your basic vertical scrolling shoot 'em up. As such, each girl has 2 primary attacks. There's their normal shot, which in the case of Sedima here is this spread shot, and then they also have a summon skill, where each goes and summons an elemental spirit or demon of some sort, and can use their attacks. So Sedima here summons an ice spirit with the ability to generate these awesome ice blades. In addition to going and having your shot and your summon spirit, every character also has a bomb. And for Sedima, that means filling the stage with powerful icicle lances. Next up, we have the third sister, AJ. AJ's shot is this interesting 2-way that will combine together and home in on the enemies, basically making it a homing shot. Her spirit is this light spirit, which will spawn in the direction that you happen to be pressing at the time you activate the attack. And there'll be this powerful beam forged between you and the light spirit, dealing massive damage to enemy. Really, like, AJ is probably the strongest of the characters, and one that's really fun to play. Her bomb is this awesome 4-beam attack. If you move up, it will spread out. If you move down, it goes and contracts. Moving on to the fourth sister, we have Nuru. Nuru's shot is this 3-way that is a true homing shot. They'll always home in on the enemies that appear on the screen. Her element is wind, and she summons not 1 but 2 wind spirits, which will rotate around her, dealing damage constantly around. So it's not very effective at dealing a focused amount of damage, but it's great for area control. And Nuru's bomb is this wind explosion that she fires out in front of her, dealing massive damage to the enemies that happen to be standing in her way. Our second to last character is Raru, the youngest sister. Raru fires a powerful piercing shot. Though slower than the other characters' shots, it probably is the most powerful. Her summon skill brings out this dark demon, which can absorb shots as well as damage enemies in close proximity. At any time, you can release the button to release the energy you've absorbed, firing it back at the enemy. So it's great for defense as well as offense. But you have to be careful. There's a meter that fills up around you as you absorb shots. And if that meter happens to reach full, then the demon will release the energy regardless of if you commanded it to or not. So if you're using it for defense, there's the possibility that you might be vulnerable in that time. Her bomb fires these homing tendrils, which don't deal a whole lot of damage, but are effective nonetheless. And lastly, we have the eldest sister, Sonai. Probably the most straightforward character to play. After you select your character, you are taken to a difficulty selection screen. Here we can pick easy, normal, or hard. There's story sequences between and at the end of every stage, as I mentioned, but we'll largely be skipping over those. Although, part of taking Sanai will give us an interesting boss for the first stage. Sanai's shot is just your basic straight shot. It's not nearly as powerful as Raru's, as it doesn't pierce through the enemies. In fact, you can see it actually takes me much longer to defeat those first enemies. But her summon skill, on the other hand, summons this fire demon, which will home in on the enemies. You might be familiar with this kind of attack if you've played Castle Shikigami, as it's very, very similar to one of the characters in that game. So let's start talking about some of the other systems that are present in the game itself. The game has this tension system, where if you happen to be close to the enemies, or close to enemy bullets, basically grazing them, you'll not only receive multipliers in your points, but you'll also power up your attacks. There's an aura you can see around the characters that starts out as green, but as you get closer to enemies or enemy shots, that aura changes to red. And when you're at red, you're at the highest tension, and thus you'll be getting the best bonuses from points, as well as dealing the most damage. There are also a couple scoring systems at play here, so you might have noticed that as we're defeating enemies, there are coins that are coming out of them. Especially if we're using our summon skill, we'll receive a great amount of coins, and if we're at higher tensions, we'll receive even more, and those coins stack up value-wise as you collect them. As long as you haven't died, the coins start out at 100 points and will go all the way up to 10,000 points for collecting 1,000 coins. So here's our boss for stage 1. So it's named Sister Royale. You have to wonder if that might be currently influenced by the popularity of Battle Royale games right now. But you're fighting against your other sisters to basically win the chance to date this one particular man. But there are 5 stages. So what does the character do when they're on the stage where they have to go and where they would be fighting themselves? They literally are fighting themselves. You're fighting basically your conscience here. A darker version of the character that you happen to be playing. So in this case, we're basically fighting Sanai's conscience here. And let's see if we can't... Nope. We didn't get a good tension bonus there. Here we go and see her sprite for the conscience version. It's pretty neat. Once you complete a stage, you also get a stage evaluation, which will give you bonus points. You might have noticed that there was a timer on the left for the boss. And also, for every action that you completed at full tension, so the times 8, you also receive bonus points for that. The bombs, and as well as your life, so the game has a life system where you have 3 lives, 1-ups basically, before you have to continue. Although the game does have infinite continues, so if you're just looking to complete it, you have to have no worries there. That can definitely be done easily in one playthrough. But you basically will, if you lose lives, or if you've used bombs, you'll regenerate bombs and lives based off of how many points you've scored. And since it's possible to get some really big multipliers going, that's a great way to keep things running well. Here we have an interesting mechanic. So one thing that I think is really fun about Sister Royale is the characters aren't flying, they're actually walking along the ground. And in this particular stage, the second stage, Setema's stage, we're actually walking over iced patches where we have ice physics we have to deal with. Ice physics in a shoot 'em up. It seems almost laughable, but, well, it definitely makes for a challenge. We let the mid-boss get away from us there. And there are other stages that have other hazards or, well, what's the right word for it? Or other obstacles as well. Like the 4th stage happens to go and be dark. The 1st stage and the 5th stage, though, don't have anything special like that. big ice patch here, hard to go and move around on. In this kind of situation, her homing summon might actually be best. So the boss of the second stage is the second eldest sister, Setuma, though the stages aren't necessarily all in order of the sisters' ages. One thing that I haven't talked about, but you might have noticed, there are these fairies that sometimes appear in the stage from shooting certain hidden areas. Those fairies will give us a multiplier to our... Here's one right now. Will give us a multiplier to, well, our multiplier basically doubles on our score that we're earning off of anything. So now we're earning times 2 multiplier for everything. So instead of getting up to times 8, we can get all the way up to times 16 for some serious points. And that's basically what we have here with the game Sister Royale. It's a 30th anniversary title for Alfa System. They've been around that long. They started out working primarily on the TurboGrafx 16, the PC engine, back in the day, developing titles for Hudson, and they really haven't done much in like recent years. So actually getting a new shoot 'em up from them on the Switch of all things is really awesome in my mind. I do have a couple minor complaints that fit in with my minus flavors, so let's go and talk a little bit about the flavors of the game. So the primary minus flavor that I have is I love the scoring system of the game. I think it's really fun to try and shoot for as best a score as possible, staying alive, collecting the coins, trying to build up as much tension as possible, and make every single coin you get count. But even if you do that, there's no online leaderboard. You're just competing against yourself. And in 2018, I feel like that's a huge lost opportunity for potential replayability of the title. Then there's also the fact that all the character routes are the same. You'll always be playing the same 5 stages in the same order. Where you have 5 different characters, I would have liked to have seen things like shaken up a little bit. The same 5 stages are fine, but go and do them in a slightly different order. Go and remix things. That would have been really great in my mind. But on the plus side, the game itself, just as I mentioned, has a really fun scoring system. I really like trying to craft a high score in this game. The story itself is also silly, largely due to the fun characters that you have. Each sister has a unique personality, and if you are able to read Japanese or have somebody to translate for you, then you can go and see just the kind of silly zaniness that they threw into the game itself, which is really fun. And it also has the ability to play in Tate, which is a great feature of the Switch, specifically in portable mode, and it plays really well that way. So it's something that if you have it on the go, you could definitely try playing it that way, or just in straight up handheld mode. It's also great. So, especially if you're a fan of the Castle Shikigami series, this is a title that I can heartily recommend. I hope that it does go and receive a wider release than just the Japanese market, as I feel that it would be great to have it available for everybody. But if not, it's not too hard to purchase on the Nintendo Eshop, the Japanese version. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.